awesome.
It's so awesome. We have all the diehard fans here because you guys are fans of Halloween Horror Nights, right?
Yes.
Yeah, huge fans. Congratulations on another successful year. Has everyone been?
Yes.
Yeah, we're all big fans. So thank you guys so much for coming. And
Of course.
one of my personal favorite houses is our Blumhouse house this year. And we worked with them before. Do you guys want to tell us a little bit about our relationship with that company and what it's like working with them?
Sure, yeah. This being Blumfest, it only makes sense. Hi everybody. I'm Mike. This is Charles, Dylan. Good to see you. Blumhouse. We've had an awesome relationship with Blumhouse Productions for many, many, many years. I believe our first year with in collaboration, I think, was 2015.
Was that Insidious?
Insidious was our very first collaboration. It was Insidious, and we had a maze based on The Purge. If you know, you know. And that was really the beginning of the relationship, and it's been amazing. The collaboration between Parks and Universal Pictures and Blumhouse is always a great thing, and really it's about providing us the tools to be able to adapt the films that are coming out, because a lot of the time, the really unique thing about the Blumhouse relationship is that a lot of the time when we're doing and developing these haunted house experiences, they're sometimes in the year for the year. So often we'll be designing content while the film is actually still in production. So we're gaining materials almost in real time with how the production is falling together. Black Phone is a really good example of something like that, where we only had a script to start with.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, really just had a script to be able to work from. And really that's working with Blumhouse and kind of analyzing the script and really getting a sense of what we think can work and how we think visually, because we're very much theater of the mind at that point when we're reading. So I'll annotate a script, especially for Black Phone this year. We got the script. I would annotate it up and give some ideas and thoughts, and then hand it off to Charles Gray and Dylan, who's our creative director for Black Phone, and Dylan, our designer for the Black Phone house. And then they take it from there.
Beautiful work, seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blumhouse is very great. Do you have a moment to answer some questions from the audience?
Sure, yeah, we can do that. I think what we'll do right before that, we'll just talk about the design a little bit.
Absolutely,
we'll
yeah,
throw
tell
it
us
out.
about the house.
Yeah.
I mean, you brought up annotating the script. Dylan and I took it into our cave. And full disclosure, I love reading short stories. I like that kind of format. Reading a script is not my favorite, but Black Phone was a page turner. It was really one of the first scripts I've read in a long time where it's just like, and then what happens, and then what happens, and then what happens. So it was very entertaining, but again, like you said, it's in real time. So we are thinking about these rooms, especially Dylan, like what can we fit in the space that we have? What are important scenes to see? And because it is a haunted house experience, you don't want it to be too voyeuristic. You could go through the script and see the important plot points, but they might not elicit a scare. So really kind of deciphering, boiling down what we want to see, how we want to encounter it. Dylan, what did you think were some of the more interesting configurations as we were creating it?
Yeah, definitely. We want to give a good feel of the character's journey through the movie, and how do you show that journey through the maze experience, and how do you do scenes that are going to be really scary, but at the same time you're going to get that story too. So I think it was really fun to kind of play around with the environments of both movies, both Freaky and Black Phone for the Blumhouse house, and kind of get the scenes that were the most effective of giving you that scare, but at the same time giving you a really fun environment to go through.
And also the fun thing about Freaky and Black Phone, there's two completely different styles of horror movie, and having that as you leave the building and going into that tent, that kind of palate cleanser was really good for that. So you kind of soak in, okay, that was Freaky, and now I'm going into something very dark in tone, and the way we created the music and the facade there is a lot of fun as you're walking into that tent. But yeah, to your point, the storytelling of it, we decided earlier on of how we were going to follow the journey, because there's a lot of different ways you can create the house. You can do it chronologically, you can do it kind of as a fever dream sometimes. I honestly don't remember why we picked the way I think we wanted to start in the basement, right? Or that area, get to the basement, get kidnapped.
Yeah, I think we very much followed the story of Black Phone for that portion of the house chronologically. Because when you first walk in, you get the grabber abduction scene and seeing the black abracadabra van, which I felt really that was something you had to see when you started the house, because that was Finney's journey, the start of his journey through this story. So that was important. I think we really did follow the story in the way it was told in the movie, and then you end up at that last battle. And I think that was important for us to show, is how did getting that last final moment of Finney's moment overcoming the grabber.
Yeah.
I think too, and like anything that we do at Horror Nights, it really is about the story. So again, reading that script, even with no other materials to go off of, I think all of us and our teams reacted to what I think the audience reacts to about when they're watching The Black Phone, especially, is that it is kind of a serial killer story, but this whole paranormal aspect that's kind of infused within it, that's very unique and very different, and also applied some really cool almost audio textures too that we can bring to the house that separate it from a house like Halloween, where that is a traditional, serial killer type slasher house. So yeah, it was a really, really fun experience.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. I love all the basement scenes you guys did for something so minimalistic as far as like the scenery. It's so well done and beautiful. If you guys haven't seen this house, you have to go through and see what they're talking about, because it's beautiful work, guys.
Yeah, and Charles and I, we were, because we just had the script and we had some pictures, and both of us were like, how is this basement laid out? Because we hadn't seen the movie yet, and we were trying to figure it out, like there's a hallway, and how does this work? And so we did a lot of investigating to make sure that we got the layout of that basement correct.
You had to build it before you had ever seen it?
No, we actually did get to see it before we actually started building.
Okay, I was
Yeah.
like, wow, you really nailed it. I was so
We're
impressed.
psychic.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Very cool. I'll turn it over to you guys, and you can chat with everyone in the house.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, we can take some questions. We've got Luke and Chris out here, or Chris and Luke out here with microphones so that everybody can hear the question, so that we can hear it too. A couple ground rules that we normally do if you've ever been to our Q&As. We can't talk about anything we're currently working on, so if you have questions about Halloween Horror Nights next year, the answer is no comment, all right? Just to get that out there. That's really the main ground rule. Other than that, we would love to talk to you all. So if you want to raise your hand, we'll get a microphone over to you. And it's going to be completely random based on preference. Or do you want me to point? I'll choose. We'll go easy first, right here on the end.
Hey guys, I just want to say thank you for giving the fans HHN, because this is something I look forward to every single year, and I appreciate how you guys have been giving us little hints throughout the season. I can think all the way back to the Mardi Gras tribute store. I love that you guys are doing that. But my question is, what was the biggest challenge that you guys had this year for HHN 31 coming, from the last few years? Because it's awesome. I love this year.
I think, real quick, I think the challenge every year, even if it's 31 or 30 or 29, is because the event changes every single year. You're really, although the wheel is there, the contents within the wheel always are shift and change. So it's really trying to recognize all the success of the previous year, recognizing the things that, from a content standpoint, that we can learn from, scares that we can adjust, technical innovations that we can bring to the table to kind of try out. It really is an investigation of trying to beat what we did the previous year, knowing that a lot of people come back year over year over year over year, and we've really set the tone that you're able to experience a relatively completely different event each and every year.
I think a challenge that, to your point, kind of building off that year after year idea, this is one of the first years that with like visual merchandise, with food, beverage, like we really actually got to sit in the, Zoom or Teams, but sit in the room with those groups and talk about what we were creating. and then have them incorporate it. So for example, the tribute store, we knew around that time what's going to be coming, and how much fun it was to try to incorporate, especially New York story with what's going on in the tribute store. Yes, it's not a linear tale, but it has so many connecting points, and for people who come night after night or year after year, there's something to glean and gain out of going into these stores or eating the foods in the area that are slightly themed off what we're doing. That's a lot of fun.
Cool. Next question? Right up there. I see you.
Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to know how far in advance you guys start planning and deciding the theme of Halloween Horror Nights for the year and the theme of all the different houses as well.
So around, now Mike does it well before, like he's probably in 20 or 37, you know, way, you're 50, he's like way up in advance. By the time it trickles down to us, I think even in June-ish, we're kind of talking IPs, maybe a little bit of that. And then currently, Dylan and I are creating next year. And it is, no, I'm not concerned.
No comment.
Boys in dark. No, but yeah, we're already well into next year's creation.
Yeah, the evolution of the event has grown so much that it is a 15, 16-month process now between getting IPs lined up, getting a sense of how the event wants to shift and change. It's more than a year, yeah. Next question, right down here.
I have more of a comment than a question.
Okay, a comment more than a question.
That was the scariest movie I have seen in ever. And I am 57, so I was 13 in 1978 when I heard that movie. And everything was like going back in time. That was so cool.
For which film?
The Black Phone.
Black Phone, the one you just saw. Awesome.
That's actually, I grew up in Colorado as a kid.
I grew up in Michigan.
Yeah, and so it wasn't filmed there, but I recognized what they were trying to do in a lot of the places. So yeah, it's kind of, it has that 70s vibe in there. That's really cool. I love this film.
Everything, the phones, everything. And then the Oakland County Child Killers was 76 and 77. So I was like, my hands were frozen at the end.
And that's the coolest thing about a gig like this is, yeah, we're creating content, but at the same time, we're fans, so we're sitting in the theater just like you all, watching these films going, that's amazing, that's really cool, that terrified me. Like, that's what you want, you know, and our job is to try to figure out how we replicate that live. Another question, right over here.
First off, great job, you guys. It's awesome. I love every year you guys challenge yourselves and you make it better and better. But my question is concerning like when you're designing the houses based on like licensed movies or franchises. I'm always curious to know what didn't make the cut, like what you wanted to include, but just you had to. You could only put so much, and almost like a DVD extra. I want to know what's on the cutting room floor. Like what did you wanted to go in there, but you had to make cuts, and something that you personally could share that you wanted to include in one of the houses, but you just didn't have enough, like to get it in there.
A lot of times when we concept, and Dylan could probably speak to this a little bit better, but we are confined by the space we are in. So if we had our druthers, we would have in one sound stage, 2 sound stages, we would have one house. You know, you have to go through one, go through the other. But a lot of stuff kind of gets cut as we squeeze it and pack it into a house.
Sometimes it's a big puzzle, and you're trying to get all the pieces to fit. And you just really hope that they do, because we have such grand ideas, but sometimes the pieces just don't fit in the space. So there were a couple things I know that we would have liked to do, but we just couldn't get it to fit. So we ended up having to, sometimes we'll keep the feel of the moment, but we'll just rearrange it. And instead of being a big thing, it might turn out to kind of a smaller thing, but it might still give you a little bit of the same impression that we are going to have regardless.
It's also an exercise we're dealing with any license holder. It's sometimes even less about things we couldn't do. It's also educating the license holder on how we adapt, because it is a completely different medium. Again, watching a film and all the again, you're confined to the camera lens and what the camera is showing you, which is kind of similar to a walkthrough of a house because it's a first-person view. But it's also educating those license holders on, here is how a haunted house works. Because sometimes we'll get license holders that say, we want you to hang the guests from the ceiling and turn them upside down, just like this one scene. And we're like, whoa, hold on. There's safety rules that we have to go by, and this is not a ride attraction, you know. So there is an education sometimes for not necessarily Blumhouse, because we've been so ingrained with that group for so long, but any newer brands that we'll bring in. There's a lot of here's how we do it. Here's how Horror Nights works. A lot of times we'll invite them the year before we're actually doing something with that license holder, so they can actually experience the event just like you all do and we do. So they get a sense of the nuts and bolts of how this horrific machine works for Horror Nights. All right, let's see, we'll keep things moving. Right in the middle. Is that Seth?
It's
Hey,
Seth.
Seth.
Hi. Hi, guys. Thanks for being here. Earlier this week at the Meta Connect event, they announced there will be virtual reality content on Facebook Horizons for the Quest virtual reality headsets for Halloween Horror Nights and Blumhouse. I know you guys can't tell us anything specific, but
Thank you for saying that, Seth.
in general, I know Halloween Horror Nights has dabbled with VR almost a decade ago. Where are your heads right now in terms of technology? Do you personally use VR, and what excites you about the possibilities?
This is a Dylan answer, because he has been the godfather of getting our heads wrapped around new ways to engage how we design.
So yes, we do use VR when we design the houses now. I got really excited about VR technology about a couple years ago, and I was like, I found some really great applications that actually allow us to physically walk the houses before anything is even designed. We can just walk through a SketchUp model and
Like Dead Man's Pier, right?
yes.
Which Dylan designed, by the way.
Thank you. So it's just so exciting to be able to do it, and there's really great advances in technology where you're not limited by a cord, so we can actually take it into an empty soundstage and physically walk the entire house, which is an amazing thing to be able to do. And one of the fun things that this is a story Charles tells all the time, is I took Laura Sauls through the Dead Man's Pier house model after I finished, because I was just dying to walk somebody through it. And so we were outside Charles' office, and Laura's like, hey, Charles, do you want to take a look at this? And you were busy, and he's like, oh, maybe another day. And so Laura's walking through the house, and she's like, oh my goodness, oh my word. And then Charles comes out and he's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll take a look at it.
She was just, every 2 seconds I'm like trying to write, oh, wow, ooh. And I'm like, all right, fine. Give me the headset.
Yeah. So that is one thing that I think has been a huge help, because you can actually, instead of just seeing on the computer screen, you can be in the space and you can see exactly how it's going to be in real life.
Yeah, we there was a few times, like houses that you and I designed together, where we would walk in the VR, and then I'm like, ooh, if I'm standing here, I can actually see where that character is coming from, or that hole. Can we slide that window back to like here, and then you'd like measure, oh, okay, back a foot. I mean, just little things like that in real time. It's amazing.
We can be in the same model at the same time. We see each other's avatars walking through the house, and we can talk to each other as well. So
if somebody peeks in the soundstage, you see two guys going.
you have to be careful that somebody is checking, make sure you don't bump into any walls.
All right, let's see. I'm sorry, this spotlight is literally blocking my view. Okay, there's some folks waving furiously through the spotlight.
Yeah. I was just wondering, like specifically with like the Blumhouse houses, how do you feel the challenge kind of evolved going from doing like one theme versus the last couple of years that you've done where it's like two, and the challenges that you faced with that?
I think one of the challenges is, which wasn't a challenge this year, is kind of that palate cleanser before you move in from one story to the next and how to communicate. We're moving into another movie. And so again, that breaker we have this year, I think helps the tone, because you're hearing the club music as you leave Freaky. You step out of the door, you feel a temperature shift, and you hear a different score coming at you, and it gives you about, 12 feet before you enter the next section.
Yeah, I think it's a really great space between the two mazes, and it really gives you a sense of two separate experiences, and they're almost the length of a house individually, both of them. So I think that's really cool that you're almost getting two houses in one this year.
And yeah, I think when you're doing more than one theme in one house, like there have been past Blumhouses where we've done 3 separate films, and again, it's all about dwell time that you have with that brand. And I think the magic number is probably 2, especially in the new location that we've been in this year. The queue line that we're in this year literally dictated the ability to do an extended amount of content for each brand, Freaky and the Black Phone.
Yeah.
I think we got another one right up there as well. Yeah.
So I'm a big music guy, and I know there was that rumor that was like a Billie Eilish house a couple years ago, and you guys did The Weeknd, which is like my favorite house, maybe unpopular opinion, but how does that process go? Because you're not even talking a movie, you're talking, like, did you watch the Super Bowl and be like, you know, I watched all the videos, so it's like I knew what was going on, you know?
We did see the memes of everybody he was walking through that one hallway, and everyone's like, here's me walking through a Horror Nights house. Like that was almost immediate as soon as that happened. And it's not an unpopular opinion. Weekend is one of our most popular houses this year, which is awesome. And it was a wild experiment. Wild experiment. You want to talk about some of the?
Yeah, sure. Let me draw up a name for a second. Abel. No, just in communications with Hollywood, with The Weeknd. It was really cool because we got a sense that he is a fan. And we as fans were talking to another fan. And that makes things much easier in the process because it's a language that we both understand. So yes, it may be music that inspired, but it was also his, that's why we call it the nightmares, right? What he was influenced, we talked about our favorite movies, his favorite movies, what he was influenced by, which you could see in his music videos that he was inspired by. So putting those things together, very gracious and letting us expand upon his story. And so in collaboration with him, really finding the best scares. And it was a great relationship. It was a lot of fun. And again, with Murdy in Hollywood, with us here, working together with The Weeknd, I think came out pretty cool, man.
I think one of the first elements, with you being a music guy, the first elements that I think we all agreed on as a way to separate that house from the other 9 was in how music and lighting were going to live more together throughout the entire experience. Because every house, every room in a house is obviously programmed to a specific moment within that room. In this exercise, it was really marrying music and lighting almost at a concert setting, trying to allow that to be the heartbeat throughout the entire experience, which really was a little bit different than we normally tackle audio and lighting together. I think it really helped create that party-like atmosphere that exists in and amongst all the scares that are happening.
Thank you for expanding on that, because it is true that some scenes are completely timed audio with lighting. Like we might have a thunderstorm or something that's going to be tied together, but rarely do we have every single scene tied to music. For example, when you go into the bathrooms, even the overhead lights are programmed to the bass pulse of the music. And Manuel Cordero designed that house. He gets so surreal, so he's the perfect person to design that house. And it was great. The music was a lot of fun through that house. We even put music out in the queue area. We were like, let's just blow it all out, put it out there so people can dance before they get in. It was great.
All right, let's see. We'll stick with how about right here in the middle? Thank you. Round of applause for our runners.
Hey, well, thank you for making all of the houses, first of all, because They're amazing. I mean, I'm only second year going to Halloween Horror Nights. First year was in Hollywood last year, and it was amazing. But obviously, you guys knocked my expectations way out of the park with all the houses that I went through. But my question being, how do you choose the IPs that you do choose for a lot of the Halloween Horror Nights? Because like, there's movies out there that are crazy good that would be really good Halloween Horror Nights, I think, like Terrifier or anything like that. But how do you come to choose the IPs that you choose?
So there isn't one clean answer to that because there's a lot of different entities involved. So typically with Horror Nights, as anyone that's been going for a number of years, we typically fall between 5 to 6 IPs, depending on the year. And then we balance the rest of that slate with our original houses. And that relationship between those two categories is very calculated because the IPs are usually the furthest away because they require the most amount of dialogue with license holders, with our marketing partners, because the IPs have to serve a very specific purpose. There's 3 brands that are going to drive everybody to our event. You know, that's part of the dichotomy of how this event works. So it's really looking at the vastness of the genre and deciding what are the things out there right now that people are really responding to. That's for step 1. Step 2 is it adaptable? You know, can it become a live experience? So we'll work with our marketing partners and really define a large slate of brands that we'll bring to the table each and every year. So among those titles are things that are in the year for the year. Some are things that you immediately think of when you think of the horror genre, and others are these kind of up and coming or these fan favorites. Killer Clowns from Outer Space being an example. So that it's a really large list, and we'll categorize those based on awareness, based on adaptability, and based on kind of I'm a horror fan, we are horror fans, this is what we really want to see. So it is a very strategic process between us, marketing, our license holders, and it's long. So as we're developing that list, at the same time, I'm communicating to these guys and our teams, here's where we're kind of falling. They're starting to figure out all of our original ideas because those original houses start to become the content modifiers of the things that we know we're not necessarily going to touch from a brand standpoint, but these are some great characters, great environments that we can fill out the rest of our 10 houses with and become those surprises for our guests. So it's a little bit of kind of gut instinct on here's what we kind of see is hitting. It's a little bit of science because there's smarter people than us that have data that shows, well, 27% of these people like this scene from this film, so we should do this. Like that literally is conversations that we're evolving into to really understand what's hitting and what's not, so that we make sure of those 5 or 6 IPs that we're presenting, we're getting something for everyone. I think this year really speaks to that. Again, there's people that came to this event that had no idea who The Weeknd is. You know, probably before they may have saw the Super Bowl and saw the halftime show, and then they're coming here, and it's amazing to see the feedback, which we read everything, and how many people were reading going, I wasn't aware of who The Weeknd was, I'm a fan now. So there's this awareness thing the event's doing that's great, and of course he's got millions and millions of fans that are excited that we're doing this house. So it's this awesome, really cool science experiment every single year to define what this year's going to be or next year.
If you kind of think about the originals that we create too, you were saying almost like filling in the gaps of what's not being represented. IPs tend to go in cycles or waves. Like there's zombies for 5 years, there's ghosts for 5 years, there's serial killers for 5 years, and we're kind of, so we know creating originals, we're like, okay, we're not going to create this type of genre for a little while, and we'll bring bugs to the event, or different stories like that. So yeah, it's we're kind of trailing behind the IPs and filling in those gaps.
Let's see, another question. Right down here.
So one thing, this is my 7th year going, absolutely love it. Thank you guys. My question is not really about the event as much, but more like me, I absolutely loved it, and since I was going, I always like, I would love to work as a scare actor or be in it. So my question is, how do you go about becoming a scare actor or doing it, or even being like on the seat with you guys where you are on the design team to not just be a scare actor, but design the houses that are coming this year or in future years?
Yeah, there's a casting, we have a universal casting website, and I think it drops usually around late April or April-ish. So keep your eyes open for that. And we cast all the way up through the opening of the event, sometimes even past that. So we're always looking for people to jump in, be characters, and bring their energy to the event. We, as creators and designers, we create this cool car and make it as cool as we can, but it's the characters that drive it. And they're the ones who make it awesome. So if you have a favorite house or a favorite street zone, it's really because the characters are the ones bringing it to life.
As far as the design team, everybody finds their path differently. We get this question a lot, and I wish there was a standard answer, and there really isn't, because all of us have found our way into this role in very different capacities. Some of us started here as performers that work our way into the creative department. Some started out as fans of the event.
Yes.
Dylan, if you want to talk about your journey.
Yeah, so I actually did start out as a really big fan of the event. My first year was 2006, Sweet 16. And then I started at Universal as a scare actor in 2012. And then the next year after, I was an intern with art design in 2013. And then it just kind of grew from there. But if you want to get into actually the design side, and it's just having a passion for all things architecture, sets, theater. What we do is very theater based. So having a good knowledge of that kind of realm of things, and then just being very passionate about it. And what I always say, and I did this just as a fan and not even working here, but if you want to design a Halloween Horror Nights house, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. The only thing that's different from you designing your own Halloween Horror Nights house is it actually getting built or not. So I would just be designing all these houses and doing everything that I wanted to, and it's so great because there's no limits to what you can do. And then I took all those things that I did, and I eventually shoved them in front of TJ and Kim and everybody at the different events and stuff. And that kind of led me to where I am today. So that's my advice would just be, if you want to design, I would just keep doing that and keep doing what makes you happy. And one day you could have stuff to show people and get excited about.
Let's see. Right over here.
So I was just wondering what house or year you were the most proud of to be in creation of.
That's always the hardest question. I think I've been with Horror Nights since 2002, so probably. Well, you know what? I would say I think the first year we brought Halloween to the event for the very first time. Halloween is my favorite horror film of all time, and then in 2014, someone keep me honest here. So 14, Seth, was it 14?
I think so.
Okay, thanks. It all runs together now. 2014 was the first year we brought that, and it was a tent house that year, but it was our first time translating that, and it was an absolute dream, to walk through at that point before our years of of adapting many of those films. That was the first one where we built a facade, we did some map projection on it. Seeing the living room for the first time, which we have in the house this year as well. It was just it was mind-blowing to walk through that. That was mine.
That is a tough one. Let's see, I started 2013. 2013 was my first year, and gosh, it's really tough. I'm gonna say there's a lot of, if I looked at a Wikipedia type page and looked at each, no, this is my favorite year. There's 3 things or 4 things every year that I'm just I miss that, or I love that. What sticks in my head currently is Poltergeist.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Because, and I always compliment Mike on this, because Manuel and I we had a dream. We had a thought of how we wanted to open the house, and it sounded so weird. And when we talked to people about it, they're like, I don't understand that. I don't think that's gonna work, going in through the swimming pool. But Mike was great. He's like, okay, you know what? Show me. So we put it in SketchUp, and then I think Manuel even drew it out as like a painting type thing. And then Mike went, yes. And then we did it, and it turned out better than we even thought it was going to. And we took people in weird places, because again, we have to sell these ideas to people a lot of times, and I'm horrible at elevator speeches. And so we were like, oh no, but then you go through the closet, and then you're like in the esophagus area, and then and everybody's just like, sounds like the worst house you could ever have created. And I feel like with the people having faith in us, and when it turned out, I was just so happy. So it was a lot of hard work that turned out great.
I think one of mine is definitely the Icons house from last year. And that is because from going as like a fan of the event and just having such a great love for those characters for so long, it was so exciting to be able to work on that house and bring all those moments to life. And especially like the facade, that was so hard to come up with, because I was like, what do you do for the facade? I don't even know how we're going to show this. And the way it ended up with the totems and everything, I thought it made me feel really happy when I walked in there. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, let's see. We'll go to this side. Looks like 4 from the bottom, from the top, right there. I think a black jacket. I think I can't see. There we go.
Did y'all always have the 31 traditional Halloween as the idea for this year from years past with Pumpkin Lord? Did y'all always plan to make that?
Yes. Literally, like when 29 or 30 ended, I built a deck really fast that just had a really bad graphic version of the 31 with a pumpkin, and just like, it's the 31st year, why not lean into Halloween as a holiday? And that was it. And then it's like, how do we do it? It was serendipitous. Like, it's such an easy thing to figure out, like 31. Really, also, we can say we've been doing this 31 years, and it happens to be the date of the holiday that this event celebrates. So why not? And let's figure out how to do it really well. Dive into some more traditional textures that we haven't really done in a while, because our many years, not many, 2 or 3, we were very 80s. It was like Stranger Things and 80s. Everything was synth, which was awesome. But to be able to step out of that, our anniversary year being kind of a cleansing agent going into 31, it felt, let's start this new decade with celebrating the holiday that makes us the reason why we're all here, right over here. Like, yes.
Okay, so I know video games, I feel like they're becoming increasingly more popular and mainstream. Do you guys have any plans to do scare zones or houses in relation to video games? I'm thinking specifically like Dead by Daylight, stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yes. And we've done some video games in the past as well. We've done Silent Hill, Resident Evil. Heck, if we want to go in the Wayback Machine, and Seth's the only one I'm going to point out because I know he was probably there. Nightmare Creatures, remember that? Back in the 90s. So video games is very much part of that list I was talking about earlier. Very much a part of that. And I think the cool thing about video games now is they're also adapting into a lot of different mediums as well, that even grow that demographic larger than just those that play the game. You're seeing that more and more. So, absolutely. Again, and video games actually one of the more perfect ways to easily adapt, because it is a first-person journey most of the time. Where it gets tricky is video games can do environments to a scale that we would never be able to accomplish in a physical sense without incorporating a lot of media and things like that. But yeah, no, definitely those brands are always in that kind of awesome IP cauldron that we ladle things out of.
I love Dead by Daylight. I'm the worst. I'm the worst at that game, but I always try. I'm really good at the fixing the machines.
Yeah, fixing the generators.
But that's it. That's all I can do. Then I get killed every single time. So Dylan's always like, "Yeah, you're terrible at the
If you
game."
ever need any help.
I'm bad at it too.
She's, if you ever need any help, she's available. Yes. Dylan's a master at Dead by Daylight.
I'm not an master.
Yeah, he's humble. Let's see. Swore. Let's see.
Gentlemen, we have time for about one more question.
Oh, one more? Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm gonna pick you. Make it a good one. You're the last one, and I'm just gonna close my eyes and just point right over there.
Hey, thank you very much. So, big fans of Halloween Horror Nights. And speaking actually of video games, we heard that Blumhouse announced that they're going to have a Five Nights at Freddy's film coming in 2023. Do y'all have plans to have any other roles for a house or scare zone revolving around Five Nights at Freddy's?
I can't answer that. But here's what I will say, because I mean it's kind of it. I'm not going to say yes. I'm not going to say no. What I'm going to say is we have a relationship with Blumhouse. So I'll say that. And kind of going back to how we begin that process every year is Blumhouse comes to us, Universal Pictures comes to us with here's what we think we'd want to expand on in how we want to communicate that this element exists. And we have the ability to look through that and decide what we think would be great in the event, what we think would adapt well. I will say, I'm a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's. My son, who's 17, grew up. He is an encyclopedia of Five Nights at Freddy's. Literally knows the entire backstories, because I know there's all kinds of branching agents. So, yeah, I mean, it's exciting that it's going to get adapted in that medium, back to what we're talking about with ways to expand the video game franchise into alternative mediums that not only pay off the fans that have loved it for years and years and years and years, but also bring people to the table that are completely unaware of what a Five Nights at Freddy's entity even is. So that's the great thing about when films and TV shows get adapted from these other mediums. And then it opens our eyes as well to ways immediately on how does that become live? Because that's the other thing. Is video games or even an animated series. And our goal is to figure out how to make it a live attraction. And when these mediums decide to expand into TV and film, immediately we get a picture window of a way that can be adapted. So it's exciting that a lot of these brands that people have grown up with, again, it's all cyclical. That nostalgia pendulum is an amazing thing, that you've got all these kids that grew up with a brand like that now are, based on the announcement, are going to have a feature film based on that brand. It's awesome.
Mike, we're going to go ahead and give you one more.
Oh, cool. All right, we'll do another one.
So nice.
I know. Let's see. We're going to go up, let's see, 4 from the top. She's wiggling her fingers like this.
Okay, so hi. My question is, so I understand this is like a coast-to-coast event, and I actually go to both the one here and in Hollywood. And my main question is, how do you guys agree on houses you want to do both here in Orlando and in Hollywood?
Great question. And guys, jump in when you want. It is a collaboration. So Charles mentioned earlier, there's a guy by the name of John Murdy, who is the creative director for Hollywood. And we're talking all the time. And that list of elements, because also Hollywood, although they are doing more original houses each and every year, in fact, they did a original house that we did some years ago called Scarecrow, is one of their houses this year, which I hear is doing really, really well out there, which is awesome. And again, they kind of took the theme and ran with it, and they did a Scarecrow maze that adapts and works with their audience, which is awesome. And that's the only thing we can ask for, as creators, that our audience is going to get the content that we're creating. But it is a constant back and forth with John and his team, just as much as it is with our team, deciding which brands, because Hollywood still is their ratio of original and IP is a little bit greater because it's Hollywood, and that's where you go to experience movies. You know, so their spine, their backbone is built on presenting brands. So they do a few more than we do. So it's really deciding which ones we want to collaborate on, which ones kind of fit that, you know, nationwide marketing idea that's going to draw people in and make people go, hey, I want to go to Halloween Horror Nights. And they happen to do something I really love. So yeah, that's.
And also, it's even if we agree upon or collaborate together on almost the exact same room for room experience or beats, it's still going to be different. And so I'm kind of jealous that you get to go to both coasts, because you'll get a different experience no matter, even if on paper it looks very similar, because we're building in different spaces. Like we might be in a tent, it might be in a sound stage, or vice versa, or a queue line or something. So really the pacing is even going to be different. So
Universal Monsters is a perfect example of that. So same story, completely different applications.
Well, it's like a cyclical story, the way we kind of told it. Like you can start on the West Coast, end here, or start here and end there. So it's like the cyclical storytelling. And sometimes it is the same story. Sometimes we branch off at a certain point. So it's a lot of fun to collaborate and figure out where we want to go.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool this year how for the Classic Monsters Maze that the stories kind of split into two parts on both coasts. I thought that was the coolest thing, where we kind of start the story and Hollywood gets to end it. So, yeah.
And I think that may have been the last one. One thing before we wrap up, thank you. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for loving Halloween Horror Nights. We love it so much, and we're so grateful that people respond well to the content that's getting produced each and every year. The other thing too is horror is amazing. The genre is growing so much. I mean, you look at box office numbers right now, and horror is leading the pack right now on people wanting to venture out of their homes and go to a movie theater and see a horror film. That's the coolest thing ever. And the fact that this genre is really kind of the backbone of a lot of the things that are happening right now. So that's all due to you. It's due to us as fans. So long live horror, and this is awesome.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. We're actually going to take another quick break here before we start the Halloween portion of our day. So we need everyone back here at 3:55 p.m. Go out, stretch your legs, use the restroom.